when you were doing the things that you were doing and you were operating from your false self, you didn't know what you didn't know now.
Hey, soul family. Welcome to the Alive and Awake podcast. I'm your host, Alicia Kay, and I have spent the last 20 years teaching people how to work with their wounds and overcome their greatest fears so they can learn how to thrive in a world where they were only taught to conform. Each week, we will dive deep into the practical, the spiritual, and the mystical so I can teach you how to do the inner work to know yourself, trust yourself, and eventually love yourself enough to create a world where you feel fully alive, awake, and free. So don't forget to hit that subscribe button and never miss an episode. Ready? Let's dive in.
Welcome to another episode, everyone. Today, I am so excited to talk to you about what I discovered throughout my healing journey, which is this concept of our true self and our not self or false self. Now, many of us grow up and we have no idea that we are spiritual beings and that we came here with a unique mission to serve the planet. We came in a very wounded way, forgetting who we are and forgetting our true essence. And so, what that does is it forces us to conform and to wear masks and to hide and to pretend and to hide our true selves from the world because we feel like we're flawed and we feel like we are not good enough. So make sure you stay to the end because I'm going to give you some really helpful tips to learn how to navigate your brain and body for when you are living from a place of your not self, and exactly how to work with it and what to do about it when it comes up, because this is what I'm now a master at, because I have officially declared that I am, yes, 100% a spiritual being, and I am 100% a human being. And I am excited to be able to live and dive in both realms. And that is my greatest hope for all of my listeners to get excited about this for themselves as well. So, first, let's talk about the true self. Now, your true self is the self that you were born into this world existing as. I'm going to cast aside like birth trauma and cast aside, all the things that can happen in utero and through birth. But the truth is that before you came into your mother's womb, you were a soul, and your soul is eternal. It is multidimensional. It is living in every single one of your lifetimes, all existing at the same time, which is really hard for our little human brain to even comprehend how that is possible. But there's a reason for that, because we're not supposed to have access to it all, because we came here to try to figure something out for ourselves, for us to evolve. So before you came into the womb of your mother, that you chose to experience this human life with, you were an energy, you were an essence, you had a pure core soul frequency that is you, that is with you through all of your lifetimes, all of the dimensions, and throughout even this life, right? So when we're born, we actually are very wide open. We have a direct connection with Mother, Father, God, and the source of all creation, because we are wide open. That is why in the Bible, it says that if you want to experience the kingdom of heaven, be more like little children, right? Kids are very creative and imaginative and playful. They don't have any rules. They don't have any fear. They are really just this wide open crown chakra of information like downloading into them, and they see the world with this childlike wonder and awe. That is our true essence. That is our true selves. But as we go through things in life, we start to disconnect from that essence. And the work is learning how to reintegrate that as an adult. And so many people think that like the soft spot on a baby's head is just like a soft spot because they came out of the womb and they were, like their skull is developing. And yes, that's true from a human perspective, but from a spiritual perspective, that actually is a wide open crown chakra, which is the direct connection to Mother, Father, God, right? There is no sense of separation when you're a baby, right? Everything is of the essence of the creator. And you are experiencing the beauty, the love, the connection, the energy of the planet absorbing into obviously your infantile body. But as you get older, this crown chakra starts to close. And then the feeling of separation from your creative source, which really is the feeling of pure love, pure unconditional love and safety and security and stability and strength and power and like all of this stuff that we get separated from as we start to grow or age or develop. And so by the age of, 2 and 3, that crown chakra starts to close and we start to experience what's called the feeling of separation. And that's why children, it's called the terrible twos or the terrible threes, because they're trying to figure out where they fit in this world. And this is where the false self or the not self starts to come in and take root, which we know is called the ego, which is your personality self that you essentially chose as a soul to take on in this life to experience this lifetime with and through. And the older we get, the more and more we feel disconnected. Now, if you add in trauma, which we all know you experience birth trauma if you were born into a hospital setting, so there's no way to mitigate that. We're getting better at that as a culture, as far as learning how to have like safe home births or like other things that don't cause so much trauma to the body, which is totally a different episode. But for right now, know that when you experience any type of trauma or separation in those first stages of life, the feeling of separation radically happens faster, right? So some of that is in utero, where you actually come into the world feeling separate from source or feeling separate from God. Some of that is, for me, it certainly was the first stage of life where I had a lot of physical abuse as a baby because my mother was in, unfortunately, like a very, very abusive relationship and couldn't protect me from his violence as a child. So I could arguably say that I felt separate from God or felt separate from source from the day that I was born. Um, but however, we have an incredible ability to adapt and to overcome those traumas and the things that we endure in childhood so that we can figure ourselves out as adults. Right. So when the ego starts to form, the ego is forming a belief system or a set of, I don't necessarily want to call them rules or patterns to try to fit in and try to survive and try to get back to that feeling or source of love. So parts of our personality start to form at a very, very young age, I'd arguably say around 2 or 3, where we will do things where we'll be like, oh, are we lovable? Are we getting the attention we need? Are we getting the affection we need? And if not, let me adapt and mold myself into whatever my parents or my caregivers need me to be so that I can feel safe and secure in the world. And the more that we do that, and the more that these parts of our personality start to form, the more our true self and our true essence gets put in the back burner or gets cast aside because our only primal need right now is survival. So as we grow and as we age, we are essentially like still living in the survival mode, living with these patterns and these masks and these wounds that we try to hide because it's almost as it feels very existential, or like there's going to be an existential crisis if all of a sudden we're this like brand new being and we start showing up authentic and we start speaking our truth and we start saying how we feel, and like everyone around us doesn't know us as that. So it creates inner confusion and almost an inner crisis where we start to feel very split inside. And that actually is divine intervention when you start to feel that split, where your soul is starting to show you that you are living in two separate realities and two separate truths: the human self that has all these patterns, that has all this fear, that has all this shame, and your true self and your true essence, which is pure unconditional love and presence and connection with nature and connection with all beings, feeling that you are one and that you are united and that there is no such thing as separation, which is a higher state of consciousness that we all are trying to evolve to in this lifetime. So if you have found me and if you've listened this far, then that is you, which means that you're on actually a spiritual path of self discovery and inner knowing in order to fulfill your divine destiny here on earth. And when that happens, it feels very chaotic inside, right? So your soul chooses very specific points. We can call them certain ages. We can call them certain milestones that you need to work through. We can call them certain things that you overcome, as in when this person overcomes this or this part is completed in their life, then the soul will arrange what is called an initiation period for you to actually feel that split in duality of I feel like I'm living a lie. I feel like I'm not living in my truth. I feel like I don't even know who I am. I feel really unfulfilled. I'm no longer happy. I have all this fear. I feel alienated. I feel like I don't belong. All of these feelings will start to gurgitate, and you'll start looking at your external world and the way that you've been living, and will start to question who the hell you are and why you're here, and if this is even what you want, right? So it feels like a crisis inside because you almost feel like you're going crazy. But the truth is that you're actually being initiated into a higher state of being to find your purpose and to get on the path that your soul chose for you to get on and to work through before you came into this body. And when we go through these initiations, it feels like death because a part of you is actually dying, which is the ego or the false self. So I've had at least 3 dark nights of the soul. And I'll just explain my most recent one, which I would say would be like my most recent initiation, was about 3 years ago, where I was faced in a very, very radical way, with how I was living out of alignment with what my soul wanted me to do and how my soul wanted me to feel about myself or my higher being, whatever you choose to call that. Right. So there was a lot of wounding in my nervous system around the masculine. My whole life, I had always felt like I was going to be this woman that was going to get married, that was going to have kids, that was going to have everything on the outside look and appear normal so that I could feel stable internally. And I was faced with a radical initiation where I like fell in love. I thought I was going to be with this person forever. And it turned out to be like the worst heartbreak that I feel like I've ever experienced. And I was faced with so many shadows around how I was looking for someone to rescue me. I was looking for someone to save me. I was looking for someone to make me feel stable. And it was a very, very quick realization for me to work through my inner child abandonment, my inner child feeling like she wasn't good enough, feeling like she had to prove herself, feeling like she had to look perfect in the outside world for everybody else so that she would be accepted. And I went through this 3-year process of grieving and crying and shedding and getting very, very, very clear on who I am and why I'm here and how I am called to create my own stability. I'm called to create my own inner sense of security. I'm called to build the life that I want to live, that I know my soul is called to live without necessarily anybody rescuing me or saving me or doing that for me. During that process, though, it was like felt like I was so split internally that I couldn't even like talk to people about what I was dealing with because I felt like I was going nuts. I started seeing angel numbers. I started having all these dreams and this inner awareness coming through. My body started vibrating, like there was this electrical current running through it. And I was like, holy shit, like what is going on? So, of course, being the seeker that I am, I dove into all of this knowledge and all of this information around what that is and what that means. And just know that if you're going through some of this stuff, you are being initiated to be on your higher path and to realign with your divine self, your true self, right? This is the core essence that got hidden from you and hidden from society when you were born and you started to feel separate from God and from the creator consciousness of this planet. So as you go through the initiation, you start to reattach and realign with your true essence, which is just you. There's no need to prove yourself. There's no need to be perfect. There's no need to explain yourself to anybody. There's no need to compare yourself to anybody, because you know that you're on a unique mission and that you came here for very specific reasons that your soul chose for you to work with. And then the outer world actually starts to become your soul's training ground, or you look at it as your teacher, right? So the relationships that you're in, the situations that you're in, all become a source of information for you to continue to evolve and do your inner work. And we then can look at the people around us as like, wow, like, for me, it's like this person came in my life for a very specific reason, and they're teaching me so much about myself, right? We look at it as people that hurt us, people that abused us, people that criticized us. We hold this anger and we hold this resentment. But what we don't do is we don't look at the gifts and how that actually helped us evolve in our consciousness as a human being, right? We have to go through darkness. We have to go through pain. We have to go through some sense of suffering in order to evolve. And in order to figure out really who we are and know that our essence is enough, right? Like me sitting here talking to you right now, I feel like there's a part of me that's the currency flowing through me that is my true self. That is my essence. I also know the difference when I'm not operating from that self and I'm operating from fear consciousness or my false self, because I get all in my head. I get overly critical. I get overly analytical. Fear starts to come in. I start to think like, what are they thinking about me? Who's liking my podcast? Is this enough? And I'm like, no, 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 no. That's the false self, right? The false self is the ego that wants you to compare yourself, that wants you to prove yourself, that wants you to feel like you're not enough, that wants you to feel like you're broken or feel like something is wrong with you. That is the part that came in as the personality that you took on and chose to take on as a soul so that you could work through it, overcome it, and realign with your divinity. I know that's a lot. And I also know that you're like, what the fuck is she talking about? Because you may or may not be there yet. And if you're not there yet, it's okay. Know that every single thing that you have gone through and every situation that you have in your life right now was divinely orchestrated for you to get on that spiritual path and to get to the place of inner knowing that you are here for a reason and that you are a very, 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 very powerful being. And you cannot feel powerful if you hold all this shame and resentment and pain and fear in your body from the things that happen to you and the things that you're not proud of in your life. So this is shadow work, right? When we start to work with our shadows and we start to face ourselves and we start to understand ourselves, then we can start to realize like, no, 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 that actually is not me. Who I am at my core is a really loving person, is a really kind person who gives from my heart, who loves myself, who loves people, who desires to feel safe, who desires to feel seen, and who desires to make an impact on this planet through my heart, which is love, right? That's enough. When you align with your true self, when you get back to the truth of who you really are at your core, all this other stuff starts to feel foreign to you because you realize, no, that's just not me. It's what I did or how I felt or how I acted out of my wounding And the only reason that that's still there and I'm cycling through it and I'm repeating patterns with it is because I need to alchemize it and rise above it. It won't go away unless we choose to look at it and figure out why we're doing what we're doing, why we're feeling what we're feeling, where the fuck it all comes from, because it's not really you, right? My stories and my limiting beliefs came from growing up in a really wounded way and feeling different from everybody, not having the perfect family, having a mom that was a teenager, having a dad that didn't want me, being sexually abused and not being able to trust men. And so I was looking for men to like feel safe with. But then when I got too close or they got too intimate with me, I would run and reject them and just pretend that they never even existed because it was too hard for me to face. So we do these things through our wounding, right? Hurt people hurt people. So when you start to look deep within of the things that you're not proud of or the things that you want to change within yourself and why those patterns are there, it's learning how to meet your false self with compassion and grace and eventually work toward forgiveness. Right? There is a saying in the Bible, which is forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do. And what that means is forgive me, spirit, soul, for I did not know what I was doing. In my unawakened state, where I had spiritual amnesia and I didn't realize that I was an evolved, eternal, powerful being here for a mission on the planet, I did some really horrible things to myself and to other people. So then we can bring in, like, how do I forgive myself for that? Right? You have to forgive yourself for that because when you were doing the things that you were doing and you were operating from your false self, you didn't know what you didn't know now. Right? Like so many people come to me and they try to judge what they did back when they were a younger age or back when they like, made the mistakes that they made. And I was like, you can judge that, sure, but judgment is toxic for the soul. How about you look at it and you say, this is exactly what was going on with me. If I knew better, I would have done better. I'm incredibly sorry. I deserve to be forgiven, just like everybody else on the planet does what they do for in an unawakened state. And that's how we get to a place of inner peace inside, which is in the alignment with our higher selves, right? There's also something called like the peace that surpasses understanding. So when you really do start to align with yourself as a spiritual being, you get to a place of presence and you look at the world with that childlike wonder and awe, and you appreciate the beauty that's all around you for what you created in this life as a soul, right? Everything that is going on in your life, everything that you have in your life, you created in some way. And when we step back and we can hold on to the good, or we can hold on to the joy, and we can let love in, we can let source back into our heart, that's when we can start to create massive change. And we can start to know that that false self and those negative things that we tell ourselves about ourselves are not real, right? So there's a pattern of the inner adversarial voice or the inner shamer coming in that got infiltrated into your consciousness from a very, very young age. The Bible calls it the devil, Satan, darkness. I don't care what you want to call it. It's the not self. And the way that it can latch onto your psyche is because it will always have a kernel of truth that will try to make you believe that you are bad, wrong, not enough, not going to make it, nobody likes you, you're fucked up, like whatever it tells you is always the lie. So when you recognize that that is my not self, and that actually isn't my true self, and I'm not going to let that, ruin my day, come into my brain, ruin my consciousness, ruin my mood, ruin my joy, or take me out of alignment with peace, that's where the true power lies. When you know who you are in truth, and you know that you're a powerful being that can work with the messages, the crappy things that you tell yourself in your mind, and be like, no, I'm choosing not to believe that about myself today. I'm choosing not to live in fear. I'm choosing to trust. I'm choosing to surrender. I'm choosing to know that this life is made for me because I chose it and I can't screw it up. I have a team of freaking angels and guides and gods over me all of the time that's there for me, that is waiting for me to ask for help and ask for guidance for what I don't understand. And when you really start to do that work and you start to say, okay, God, angels, universe, show me the way. I don't know the way. I know that I'm going through something right now. I know that it's meant for a higher purpose. Tell me what I need to do. I'll do whatever it takes, even if it's hard. Like any initiation you go through is incredibly hard. However, know that it is meant to serve you for the highest good of your soul for what you came to work through in this lifetime. So the false self is anything that makes you live in fear, anything that makes you doubt yourself, anything that makes you believe that you're not enough or that you're not capable or that you have to keep it together for everybody else or that you can screw up your life in some way. That's all the wounded ego that we are here to work through and to alchemize in our life so that we can align with the highest path that our soul chose for the highest expansion that we can reach in this lifetime. So when you do that, you can start to learn how to integrate both the spiritual and the human practical in your life in form. So it is a very long process to get there, but speaking from experience, once you do, it is a pure state of like trust, bliss, inner knowing, and faith that there's nothing that you can't get through in this lifetime because you know you're divinely guided, you know you're protected, and you know that you don't have to do it all on your own. And so you let go of control. So I hope that this was helpful for you. Make sure that you really pay attention to what is going on in your brain so that you can start to identify those false belief systems, those patterns that keep coming up, and really work on getting to the path of forgiving yourself for everything that you did that you didn't know. And eventually, when you do that, you start to expand out to forgiving other people, to forgiving the collective, to forgiving God. Thanks for staying to the end of the episode, everybody. I hope that you get a little bit more clarity around what is your true and real self and what is your false and not self. Know that you are on a very, very powerful path if you are listening to me and you resonate with me. And make sure that you do that deep inner work to get really curious about the lies that you're telling yourself about yourself. And if you need extra help with this, go ahead and check out my website and download my free guide to dismantling the 3 most common unhealthy beliefs that we all carry as a soul. And also make sure that you tune in, you hit subscribe, and that you share this with someone that you know who is going through something difficult in their life. I love you, and I am so grateful to be able to share my wisdom with you.